Okay, harassment, stalkers, death threats, a day in the life of women on Twitch. Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru were threatened on a live stream, but they are not the only women dealing with constant harassment. Can I just say too, they are so beautiful. Look at them slaying. Look at them slaying. Cinna didn't even want to wear this dress for the streamer awards, and she looked so good. Okay, anyway. Rachel, Valkyrae Hofstetter, Brittany, Cinna Watts, and Emily Emiru Shunk are popular Twitch streamers with millions of social media followers. Over the years, they have each cultivated a massive community that tunes in to watch them play video games, participate in boot camps, compete in cook-offs, and sometimes get together to walk around in the real world as a camera person follows closely behind. On March 2nd, that last event, known colloquially as an IRL stream, went from innocuous to dangerous in the blink of an eye. Chuck, thank you for another gifted. As part of a days-long streaming marathon called the Sisathon, Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru went to the Santa Monica Pier at night with 2 of their employees in tow, one of which was holding the camera for their live stream. The women walked around, took pictures with fans, and talked and joked amongst themselves. At one point, a man in a button-down, short-sleeve shirt, squatting near a ride, called them over to ask if they would listen to him sing before abruptly pivoting to request Emiru's number. When she declined, he stated that he would, quote, just keep following them. The women nervously joked about stalkers as they walked away, heading towards the pier's exit. Oh yeah, you guys, the government names, that was not something that was, they did not get doxxed in this piece. Cinna's username used to be Cinna Brit, yeah. The women, okay, so moments later, the man reappeared and tried to approach them yet again. But their camera person and another individual off camera, that is Ray's assistant, Emily, kept him away from the 3 women who were visibly and audibly concerned. It was then that he appeared to lunge in their direction and yell, "I'll kill you right now," as they shouted for security and fled. Didn't the guy change clothes? Yes. So, because that apparently could not be 100% verified that it was the same guy, even though it was, yes, the same guy, because of journalistic standards at the Rolling Stone, that part is not in the piece. Even though, yes, it was the same guy and he changed clothes. Anyway. So he lunged at them and yelled, "I'll kill you right now," as they shouted for security and fled. All of this was captured on Twitch before the live stream cut to a holding screen featuring cartoon drawings of Valkyrae and Cinna with the message "BRB traveling" emblazoned on it. Hogan, thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you for the gifted subs. The Santa Monica Police Department confirmed their knowledge of the incident to Rolling Stone in an email. Officers responded to a report of an individual making threatening statements towards a group of people at the Santa Monica Pier. Officers contacted those involved, assisted them with an escort to help ensure their safety, and conducted an area search for the individual. The suspect was not located at the time. The next day, Cinna and Valkyrae went live on Twitch to discuss the incident, revealing that they ran into a store to seek shelter from the man. "He's still out there, but I am investing as much as I can to find this guy," Valkyrae said as Cinna sobbed beside her. Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru did not respond to interview requests. A Twitch rep tells Rolling Stone that the team is horrified by any kind of harassment or abuse, even if it took place outside of Twitch, and our safety teams continue to investigate. "We care deeply about our creators and their well-being and are working to ensure that they're being supported." Well, what I would like to say is, first and foremost, I think Twitch needs to take immediate action anytime there is a streamer who is known to be a stalker, right? Because in their content, they are on their stream, they are doing stalker shit. And yet their streams stay up. Like recently, there was a guy who was on live stream talking about how he's in a relationship with Pokimane, and how they're going ring shopping, etc. And it was on live stream. Yes. And I will tell you, without naming specifics, that this is a pretty common occurrence. That I know multiple stalkers who live stream their stalking behavior. Like they're, talking about these female streamers, talking about how they're going to go find them, doing really scary things on live stream. Okay. I kind of don't feel bad because no one not only cared when it happened to me, but mocked it. So it kind of had to happen for someone else for people to pretend to care. So this is not the right attitude to have. Okay. This is not a good mentality. When something bad happens to you, you should actually, let me handle this, you guys. Let me handle this because I do want to correct this. When something bad happens, it's actually really important that we care in every instance of this happening so that we can draw attention to the fact that this is a systemic issue, that this is something that affects so many women, whether or not you are a public figure. The reason that this is getting attention is because, one, it happened on live stream, and two, all three of these girls are public figures. So they have more visibility, okay? They have a bigger spotlight on them. This is what I say every time I cover a case of sexual harassment and abuse in Hollywood, where this is something that we are looking at because there's a lot of media coverage of it, but it does not mean that these are the only women who matter. And the reason that we're talking about this is because we are trying to fix the culture. We are trying to progress and make this an environment that is safe for all women to exist. And this is for all of us. Okay. So I am sorry that this happened to you. And the unfortunate reality is that this has happened to so many people where their claims are not taken seriously, where the police, ignore them, where the laws do not protect them. And this is why we are fighting to change all of this. This is why when something like this happens to female streamers, where it was caught on camera and therefore is, stirring up this conversation, we are not talking about just these three women, okay? We are talking about all victims of stalking and harassment and abuse. So instead of saying, I kind of don't feel bad because no one not only cared when it happened to me, but mocked it, I feel instead that you should be the opposite of this, where you're like, I am tired of this happening to not just me, but women everywhere. Okay, so I get that this is very emotional for you because of your own personal experiences. And it's not right that we live in a world where as a victim of abusive behavior, that you are not taken seriously. I was made to feel that way for a long time. And I am profoundly sorry that has been an experience of yours. And I think what I want you to understand is that this is a pretty universal experience. It doesn't make what happened to you any less awful. But I think if you recognize the solidarity, the solidarity that I am trying to cultivate here with all victims of abuse, and that it is better for all of us to be together than to be separate. Chatter, I promise you aren't the first person who's had this happen to. The article is not treating this like a new phenomenon. Please don't be jaded whenever people acknowledging things need to be changed is a good thing for future people like you, not in the spotlight. Yes, no, it shouldn't be mocked when it happens to anyone. Of course not. Of course not. And I think you're, I know. Okay. I understand. And that is why Alyssa wrote this piece. That is what I was talking to her about today at lunch. We were talking about these larger problems and what we as a female streamer and a journalist can do about it. Like, this is the discussion we were having, because these are issues that are so deeply ingrained in our culture that Alyssa, as a journalist who writes about these things, and me as a female streamer who talks about these things, are trying to change. Okay. I think you're fighting ghosts right now, because nobody in this community is mocking you. Nobody is invalidating you. What we're talking about is how, unfortunately, this is very commonplace. And I think that for you, your obvious anger at what happened to you, and the trauma in what happened to you, and also your experiences in trying to in trying to achieve any justice whatsoever, has made you very angry. And I do get that. I am also a person who is frequently filled with rage at the injustices that I see everywhere, that I myself have experienced. And so there is, this is not something where, this is not a community, and I am not a streamer who only believes that abuse that happens to female streamers, famous female streamers, or female celebrities is the only abuse that matters. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to move on. To the rest of this piece. Okay, so in the days leading up to the attack, Cinna and Valkyrae streamed themselves styling their hair together, playing video games, and otherwise hanging out in a sleepover-style marathon, which was targeted by reactionary content creators, including Drama Alert, an X account created by Daniel Keemstar Keem, dedicated to posting content creator gossip. These posts denigrated the women, calling them out for their behavior. This is all quotes, because that was what was in these posts, and suggesting that their content is inferior to popular male streamers. There is no indication that the physical attack was inspired by the digital disparagement the women faced in the days leading up to March 2nd, but it is a symptom of a troubling pattern. According to several high-profile women streamers who spoke with Rolling Stone, two of whom have dealt with stalkers, this incident is just one of dozens of examples of female streamers facing both online and in-person harassment and stalking, a symptom of a deep-rooted misogyny that festers in digital spaces. That guy is 30 years older than his wife. Yeah, Keemstar is he's a real gem. Real good guy. Key to Harmony, thank you for the Prime. Nighthawk, thank you for the 3 months. Ashley, thank you for the 29 months. Jason Isaac just talked about how police didn't take him seriously when he reported a stalker. They treat it like a joke. Yes, and if you've watched, I read that story. If you've watched the show Baby Reindeer, that is a topic that is tackled in that show, and the protagonist is a guy who is also dealing with the obstacles of the police and the law not being on the side of victims who are dealing with stalkers and dealing with harassment. From follower to fanatic. Autumn Rhodes is a new mom. She's also I know who this is, and she is a very sweet person. She is also a popular content creator who has been involved in the gaming and streaming space for over a decade, boasting more than 82,000 followers on X, 240,000 Twitch followers, and several stints in professional esports. Her impressive career has been marred by the actions of a persistent stalker who she says has sent her tens of thousands of sexually explicit and threatening emails and private messages across several social media platforms since she was 19 years old. She is 28. So this has been happening for almost a decade. On Twitch, it's normal to have people that can donate to support their favorite streamer, she explains over a video call. I've been living on my own since I was 16, so it was a big deal saving up for college. But Rhodes says that one of her most generous donors quickly became entitled and irritable when she did not acknowledge him in Twitch chat. At the time, my ex-partner was becoming a doctor, so I kept my relationship very private, Rhodes says. The man found out I was in a relationship, and all of a sudden I got these emails out of nowhere like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to fly to Canada and find you and your boyfriend. And the thing is, okay, let me explain something. So a lot of streamers keep their relationships private, whether they are both streamers or one of them is a streamer and they are dating someone who is not a streamer. That is because of the very dangerous parasocial aspect of streaming, where often, especially with female streamers or the private partner who is female, where these people who are viewers of the stream feel like they are either in a relationship with the female streamer because they have given her money, because they have supported her career, okay? Or if they are fans of the male streamer, and let's say the male streamer is in is like a COD streamer, okay? A type of a community that can often draw very toxic viewers, then what happens if that couple breaks up is there are these awful shitheads who believe that not only is it their right, but it is their duty to go harass the parties involved. And Brooke AB and Symphony are probably the most egregious example of this. This is a couple who are not private, okay? They are both streamers. They're in a public-facing relationship. Symphony is in a part of the internet where there are a lot of very toxic gamer-type viewers. And for years now, Brooke AB has been subjected to the most vile harassment, stalking, death threats, doxing, just the most insane shit. She could fill an entire book with all of her experiences and still have more to write on. And she is one in particular who has spoken up about this issue. And after the incident happened with Ray, Emiru, and Cinna, she talked about how the police essentially do nothing unless you've been physically harmed. It's like, okay, if you're dead, then we'll do something about it. Ray has explained in depth multiple times about why she'll never have a public relationship again after she had one on and off for like 5 years. And yes, and so what women will be accused of is they will be accused of being of taking advantage of their male viewers, okay? That they're keeping their relationship secret because they're fake whores who just are trying to get as much money out of men by pretending that they're single and leading them on and like pretending as if they're in a relationship with them. Yeah, even if they're single, they're not going to date you. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, right. Even if they are single, it's not happening. So let's see. Rhodes shared screenshots of emails, texts, and social media DMs allegedly sent by the man whom Rolling Stone has chosen not to name. Like, let me just say, I've gotten a lot of comments about how I only dated Will because he's a rich, popular streamer, right? Because Will and I are in a public-facing relationship, now people, who know we're together say that I am a gold digger, that I am, that I targeted Will because he is a popular streamer and I'm just trying to benefit off that. Which, not that it matters and not that it's anybody's fucking business, but when I started dating Will, he had mold in his apartment, and I think this was right after he got fired from TYT. No. What happened was he was working at TYT. No, he was working at TYT, but it was only like they were, it was not full-time work, and he was trying to do other freelance stuff. And then they were like, sorry, we don't have enough money to keep paying you. Bye. Yeah. So, basically the point being that it's nobody's business, and it doesn't even matter to these people online, right? They don't care about reality. But when I met Will, mold apartment, and I made more money than him, and I didn't make very much money. Okay. So these screenshots range from a self-written contract that relinquishes his money to her to emails containing taunts like, go tell cops, seal your fucking fate, dumb bitch. And you can have me arrested. You better pray they kill me because you fucked me over. On TikTok, one DM read, you will suffer. Mark my words, bitch. You're dead already. Rhodes, who was based in Canada, tried to report this behavior to police in California, where he was based. Nothing happened because he kept harassing me. He didn't get arrested until I was 22. So for 3-4 years, I was getting harassed every single day. She says, her voice shaky. I thought I was going to die. I was so depressed, so scared. I was in survival mode for years, and nobody was doing anything about it. The police weren't doing anything about it. Twitch wasn't doing anything about it. It just kept escalating. Rhodes' main source of income had now become a terrifying gauntlet of harassment, and during those years, she missed out on several opportunities for fear of going to in-person events. I know female streamers who have quit because of stalkers. I know others who have almost quit because they're scared. They're scared to go live. I remember contacting Twitch like, hey, I really want to go to TwitchCon, but I'm scared, she recalls. And they responded like, yeah, don't go to TwitchCon. It's not safe. Like, I remember when Frogan was getting a lot of harassment, and she had to like beg Twitch for security at TwitchCon. And it's like, this is a person who is being harassed on, God. And I think this was like 2 years ago too. Anyway, and they responded, don't go to TwitchCon, it's not safe. It was affecting my job, my livelihood. In a statement to Rolling Stone, Twitch said, over the past several years, we've built on and adjusted our approach to TwitchCon safety and security. We take security at our events extremely seriously, full stop. But Rhodes felt like she was left to fend for herself. It enrages me that women have to go through this, and we have to be screaming at the top of our lungs, help us, and nobody wants to help us. The man terrorizing Rhodes was eventually arrested in December of 2019. According to a news report, he had to be tased by Bay Area police after begging to be shot. In February 2019, he pleaded no contest to 1 count of felony stalking and 1 count of misdemeanor stalking and was sentenced to 120 days in jail. That's it. So he's out. He's been out for years, and he's still stalking her. He's still harassing her. Rhodes fears that he will try to find her in the U.S., where she now lives with her partner and her toddler. Yep. Then when streamers do rightfully get defensive due to these kinds of threats, these same people turn around and attack them for being rude and disgusting. Yes. Like, on that live stream, you can see how ingrained it is in how ingrained it was in the women to like not try and do anything that was going to piss that guy off more, right? They're not saying like, get the fuck out of here, you fucking freak, right? They're trying not to provoke him more. They're very careful. And also the fact that they're on live stream, right? That there is this sense of like, I don't want to come across as a bitch, right? I don't want to come across as rude. So, anyway, we'll get into that. Though the details differ, the story remains the same for many women on Twitch. A man starts watching their streams, then eventually becomes obsessed with them, transforming from fan to serial harasser or stalker. And let me be clear, okay? Obviously, there are male streamers, usually the biggest male streamers, who have also had instances of stalkers, you know, people harassing them, getting doxxed. But what's different here is the sexual component, okay? So for women, this is rape threats. This is, you reject me sexually and I will kill you. And this is what happens with female streamers, because this is what happens to women worldwide. So this is what's very frustrating, is that in the aftermath of what happened to the women on their live stream, and a lot of women coming forward to say enough is enough, like, I have to deal, you know, this isn't just about them dealing with this in individually. This happens to so many women. This happens to women who aren't female streamers. Female streamers just have more visibility. And a lot of the responses were, oh yeah, well, this happens to Kai Cenat. This happens to iShowSpeed. Where it's like, Kai Cenat got swatted during his subathon. And it's like, okay, so we need to understand, though, that this is something that is systemic, okay? The harassment of women, whether you are streamers or not, the abuse of women, this is systemic. This is this is coming from cultural misogyny. No, not a single person, streamer or not, should deal with this type of behavior. But the reasons why this happens to women, and this happens to women so often, is very different from why, like, Kai Cenat gets swatted on, you know, during his massive marathon stream. Cinna even said that women are saying she faked the incident. Makes no sense. Yes, I mean, man, I could talk about internalized misogyny till I'm blue in the face. I was saying yesterday that I have now pissed off a lot of women online who are, you know, the type of people where if you go to their account, it says Marilyn Manson is innocent, Johnny Depp is innocent, free Justin Baldoni, right? These women who their entire identities revolve around protecting men who've been accused or who've been convicted of abuse. And so now I have a lot of these women who are so mad at me and quote unquote, I am on their radar. So trust, like, I understand full well how prevalent internalized misogyny, right? How so many women have internalized just these, just this hatred towards women, you know, these really conservative beliefs of gender. Bro, people are not okay. I know. And it's tough because, remember, the patriarchy is held up by men and women, okay? Like, women are also foot soldiers for these patriarchal systems. It's like the whole boy mom thing, right? We've talked about boy moms before, women who have a daughter and a son and prioritize their son. They like their son more because he's a boy. They treat him not as a parent to child relationship, but as like friends. And oftentimes it gets really creepy where it's like, my son is not going to marry or whatever, where they're like horrible to women who they view as threats. Yeah, it devolves into like some real sickening Freud shit. Like, it takes being the largest creator on the platform to get the same level of harassment that almost every woman streamer not receives. Tell me how it makes sense. Right. And that's the thing, is like, you know, we're going to continue with this piece here, but what I'm trying to stress is that this happens to women whether you are the size of Valkyrae or Cinna or Emiru. And a lot of guys online were like, yeah, well, they're famous. Okay, this is just what happens to you when you're a big streamer. It's like, no, sadly, no. These women have the resources to get like the best security, right? Pokimane spends thousands of dollars monthly on security, but that is not the case for most women. Okay. Jonna May is a popular streamer known as Mrs. May, who's been creating online content since 2012. Her partner, Mike Diesel Carr, is himself a well-known gaming personality. They often work together, but they did not expect that they'd face a stalker together as well. According to May, a man who Rolling Stone has also chosen not to name began following her on Facebook, where she was one of several content creators who led the platform's streaming charge. He initially came into one of my streams super nice, and then out of nowhere, he got inappropriate, rambling in chat, saying anything and everything to get attention. May explains, I told him, hey, you need to chill out. May says that the man then began behaving similarly in Carr's Twitch stream chats. We think it was like drug-induced or something, just from the stuff that he was writing. It was nonsensical, out-of-pocket stuff. Then all of a sudden, it was completely deranged sexual stuff. Like Road Stalker, Carr and May says the perpetrator would make dozens of accounts on Twitch and elsewhere to continue harassing the couple. You could always tell it wasn't even like he would try to hide who he was. Late last year, May went into her email spam folder looking for a message and saw that it was filled with harassing messages from the man. Gmail deletes spam folders every 30 days, so I could only imagine what the past 2 years were like before that. Carr also had a slew of messages from the same individual in his spam folder, some of which were requests to buy May from him. You know how you can just sell women? I mean, you actually can. Though disturbed, the two continued creating content and making public appearances, even attending TwitchCon 2024 in San Diego, California. That's when things escalated even further, though not at the actual Twitch event. Twitch tells Rolling Stone that people who have been indefinitely suspended from the platform, including off-service violations, are not allowed to purchase TwitchCon tickets as they do not have active accounts. This may have prevented May and Carr's stalker from approaching them at the San Diego Convention Center where TwitchCon 2024 was held. Instead, he found the couple at a San Diego Padres game that weekend. We're big Padres fans, so we saw 3 of the games against the White Sox. The first 2 games he emailed us and said he was going to try and go to them, so I didn't post about the game on the 3rd day, May explains. But at the end of that game, as Carr and May rose to leave their seats, a man approached and asked to take a picture with them. Initially, I didn't recognize him, May says, but Carr almost immediately knew who it was and told her that they had to get out of there. May describes hiding in a bathroom for more than 20 minutes in the hopes that he would lose her in the throng of people exiting the stadium. When the couple returned to their home in Chicago after TwitchCon weekend, they knew that they had to do something. A lawyer friend helped them identify and locate the stalker and collate evidence in a massive binder, which May took to the local county clerk to get an emergency no-contact order. For them, the most damning evidence that warranted a restraining order was an email from the man that read, I even sent you literally my sperm in a Ziploc bag so that you could get yourself pregnant, but it got returned because you don't have that P.O. box anymore. Holy fucking shit. What the fuck? I mean no harm, you know. I just really am in love with you. Oh my God. Coupled with emails in which the man discussed attending the Padres game and complimenting May for the pants that she had on there, the evidence was enough to grant May an emergency no-contact order. In January of this year, she successfully filed a 2-year no-contact order against him in the Circuit Court of Cook County, Illinois. After 2 years of that, it was a huge wave of relief, but it doesn't stay. We're still nervous. That kind of stuff lingers. Online misogyny transcends the internet. May and Rhodes aren't the only streamers who have successfully protected themselves from stalkers through the court of law or other means. But litigation is an expensive and confusing process that not every streamer can endure, and law enforcement is still woefully unprepared when it comes to online harassment and stalking. That's why when all the stake shit was happening, Ray stood up because it was happening to her, and because she has the resources to file legal action against these accounts that are profiting off of taking clips of female streamers and using really explicit captions that are sexual in nature. And she was like, I will go after you. Like, you watch out. The time has, your time has ended. And it's already had an effect. Yeah, I mean, the stake logos still pop up, but like it was happening constantly. Constantly. Female streamers, Cutie Cinderella and Pokimane talk about like whatever, a caption that it's just very sexually explicit. I am a single child, and the internalized misogyny I've seen my own mother display towards other women and women victims, despite being a victim herself, broke me so much as I grew up that it made me cry and puke at times. It's heartbreaking. If you look at what happened as the Me Too movement was breaking, there was a generational divide, and there was also like a cultural divide where women of certain cultures, women of certain generations were, either much more hesitant to jump on board with the social movement or were like very antagonistic to it. I mean, we saw that letter that a number of very, very noteworthy female actresses like Catherine Deneuve, who's one of the most famous female actresses, one of the most famous French actresses, signed that was basically saying that, not even basically, that said that men should be allowed to harass women because it's just what they do, right? That's just how things have always been. And there is young women have internalized misogyny as well, but when you look at generationally, a lot of women who for most of their lives, they have just silently endured this behavior. Like I remember, I've told this story before, but like my sisters and I we're very outspoken. We talk about a lot of things, and we talk about a lot of things with our mom. And it wasn't until my mom was like over the age of 50 that she started opening up about stuff, and that she, most women battling with her own internalized misogyny, was coming to terms with that. Was talking about all of these things that had happened to her starting from when she was a little girl, and how this was like she had never talked about it before. Never. My mother has told me things that she has never spoken about, and it's like the first time that she is really coming to terms with it, and she's in her 60s. Right? And I talked about this with Pamela Anderson when, I was watching a video of Pamela Anderson, and somebody brought up, well, remember when Pamela had made those really awful comments about the Me Too movement? I'm like, yes, I do remember that. She has since backtracked and apologized for how, for like what she said that was condemning the Me Too movement, that was condemning victims who were coming forward, because, and she recognized that like that came from her own repressed her own repressed trauma and her own internalized misogyny, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Litigation's expensive and confusing. Couple that with the internet's pervasive misogyny, which all too often derides victims' experiences or flat out denies that they even happened, and you have obstacles that feel insurmountable for most. In the aftermath of the in-person harassment and threats against Valkyrae, Cinna and Emiru, a spate of posts on X and elsewhere, some from the same accounts mocking them in the days leading up to the event, suggested that they had staged it or were exaggerating the severity of the situation. This is what happens when something is even caught on camera. Okay, how often do we cover cases of abuse where it's very hard to obtain the type of evidence that is needed in a court of law, where the burden of proof is on the complainant, is on the the person who has made the allegations. And even in cases where there is like rare, very clear-cut physical evidence, the responses to that are still to dismiss it, still to be like, nope, this is faked, right? Look at P. Diddy. Okay? Like one of the most prolific monsters out there, where there is a video of him abusing Cassie. Right? And that is a rare instance of a, you know, of someone who has been accused of rape or, you know, another form of abuse, and there is like undeniable proof of it. No means no. You are not entitled to anybody, Valkyrae said in a March 2nd statement on X. The fact that this man threatened our lives after being rejected while we were in a group, in public and live on stream, just shows the harsh reality women live in. This happens off camera to women all the time. I understand internalized misogyny, but the women who are Team Tory Lanez over Meghan still blows my mind. Yeah, it's awful. It's horrible. Caroline Kwan, that's me, a variety streamer who often discusses the intersection of politics and pop culture, tells Rolling Stone that women in this space who face stalkers don't often publicly speak about their experiences. After the incident happened with Emmy, Cinna, and Valkyrae, I felt this rage from not just myself, but so many women streamers who tweeted in a way that they don't normally speak about these things. Kwan explains. There was just an outpouring of rage that you could tell was pent up. So many female streamers have had really horrific, terrifying things happen, and it's a double-edged sword where on the one hand, if you share your experiences, it shines a light on this issue, but on the other hand, it could potentially make you more of a target. Could be a trophy for these guys who are behind all this harassment. And it can also incentivize more people. Like, I remember when I spoke up after after the AI shit happened, okay? When female streamers were with the atrioc and AI porn of female streamers. And so a lot of people were talking about it. That was a big moment online where we were having this conversation. And I tweeted, of course, condemning it, talking about how this is, you know, a form of digital sexual abuse. And there were people, and this is when I think I still had my DMs open. I got DMs. I had comments that were like, "You're next, bitch." Like, "Oh yeah, oh you think it's bad? We're gonna do it to you too," right? That was just me talking about it, because the point was to exercise power, was to have control over me by saying, "I can do this to you. You think you're special? You think you're sitting up there in your castle, right? You multi-billionaire." Gold digging Twitch streamer, I can get to you. And so it is tough because I've had experiences that have happened live on stream, and it's like you can't talk about it because you know that is what these people want, and it also could incentivize others to do the same thing where they're like, haha, somebody got to her, I'm going to do it too. Mishu, thank you for the Prime Jetty. Thank you for Tier 1. Dova Beer, thank you for the 6 months. Key Harmony, thank you for the Prime. One of the most common replies to women talking about AI porn was, "You're next." Yes, absolutely. You're next. We'll get to you next. It's this, it's the same shit too that you see really with, name any topic where you just have rampant freaks online, like any Palestinian person or anybody on, just anybody who someone on the internet is like, "You're brown," who is like talking about Palestine or talking about Mahmoud Khalil, and they're like, "You're next. Fuck around and find out. We'll get you next. Ha ha." It's a way to try and instill fear, to silence people, to threaten them, to be like, "I have power over you. You have nothing. You are nothing." Broken Glasses, thank you for the Prime. Okay, this is not just it's not just the biggest women streamers who face obsessive fans. This is happening at all levels. This is happening to female streamers who have 20 viewers, female streamers who have 500 viewers. I'm thinking about all the streamers who do not have these types of resources that creators like Pokimane have. There's this idea that any streamer you've heard of is a millionaire, Kwan explains, and the few who are millionaires, in 2023, Poki confirmed she was worth well over 2 mil. Get it, queen? Spend thousands of dollars a month on security. Also, everything that I share in this piece is something that these women have already talked about themselves. So this is not, I would never ever reveal any information that I was told privately. And it's why I'm very careful in not sharing the specific examples that I know, because I have been, I am aware of a lot of instances of stalking and harassment, etc., but that the women that this has happened to who don't want to talk about it online. So I would never share something that someone didn't want to, look, I know I'm a leaker. Okay. Ew. I know I leak things. Gross. And, but that's stuff like, oh, I'm a part of this event and I'm not supposed to reveal, sorry, I'm not supposed to reveal that I'm a part of that event. But like, these are things that I'm very, very, that I am very cautious about. Okay, gross. We're moving on. For Cynthia Miller Idris, founding director of the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab, online misogyny has remained a constant for the last 15 years. We've been tracking the increasing online misogyny, which is documented to have increased regularly since 2011, she says. That is horrifying. And I've talked about this when I've covered the proliferation of AI porn and how, like, in just the last 5 years, in the last year, how much AI porn has proliferated online, how many more women who are like 95% the targets of this type of digital abuse, how these numbers are just going up. This exposure and escalation of misogyny is happening at every level: elementary, middle school, college. The escalation of physical violence and threats is part of the same online trend that we're seeing. You have this political climate where young men suddenly feel empowered to assert control, even physical control or ownership over women and their bodies, Miller Idris explains. The men stalking May and Rhodes both expressed a feeling of ownership over them and resorted to violent rhetoric and obsessive behavior when that ownership was questioned. The individual who threatened Valkyrae, Cinna and Emiru did so immediately after being turned down romantically, an all too common phenomenon amongst men. According to a 2018 study published in an American Psychological Association journal, men with high scores on sexual dominance, motivation, and positive attitudes about casual sex had a greater probability of responding aggressively when they formed extremely hostile perceptions of the woman who rejected them. Online misogyny doesn't just exist in digital spaces. It can and does bleed into the real world. With Twitter or X becoming more of a cesspool and Meta removing so many of the content moderation guidelines that would have set a norm about what constitutes hate, that is really affecting hate against women, Miller Idris says. You can say that women are property now. You can say that LGBTQ people are mentally ill, kind of legitimizing and normalizing some of that stuff. Hello, this is what I was talking about with platforms like Jubilee. Right? Like, this is what we've been talking about, where this kind of stuff is being so normalized. Motherfucking Gavin Newsom. You want to know who his second guest on his podcast is? Steve Bannon. Steve looks like he has a venereal disease. Bannon. Yeah. Gavin Newsom, starting with Charlie Kirk and then Steve Bannon. It's like, thanks, dude. Thanks. Why? You piece of shit. I hope all of his hair falls out, honestly. You know what? I'm going to start a rumor that he's got hair plugs. Allegedly. Yeah, never forget when Gavin Newsom, when he dated a teenager. This was after he divorced Kimberly Guilfoyle. Okay, remember when Gavin Newsom and Kim Guilfoyle were married? He was in his late 30s. Dated a teenager. Yeah, he was 39 years old when he started dating a 19-year-old. When they went to an event, she had to use a fake ID so she could drink. Yeah. I always have fun people learning. Wait, okay. This is my favorite picture. Kimberly Guilfoyle, Gavin Newsom, carpet picture. Here you go. If you've never seen this, if you've never seen Gavin Newsom and Kimberly Guilfoyle in a 2004 story in Harper's Bazaar. Yep. Looking like, I don't know, the type of people who would pay to watch people murdered, like get murdered, poor people get murdered in a horror movie, right? Like these are the type of people who have the masks, who are like the rich people wearing masks in Squid Games, watching poor people fight to the death. These are Squid Game people. Yes. He literally looks like American Psycho. I know. Yep. We keep people as pets energy. How old was he when he married Kimberly Guilfoyle? He was in his 30s. They weren't married that long. I think it was just a couple years. But he was almost 40 years old and was dating a 19-year-old after his divorce. So, anywho, okay, where was I? Why was I talking about him? Yes. Steve Bannon. Okay. You can say that women are property, LGBTQ people are mentally ill, legitimizing this stuff. And of course, the anti-DEI climate in general. It's hard to imagine that this climate doesn't exacerbate it. Yeah, when you have the biggest political streamer on Twitch who, newsflash, is not Hassan Piker, but is Asmongold. As much as Asmongold doesn't want to say that he's doing politics, he is a political commentator now. When you have a guy like that who is fostering just this hatred towards, people of color, queer people, women, and it's being filtered through his commentary in video games, because that's where he started, right? We've been talking a lot about like the pop culture to alt-right pipeline, where a lot of podcasters and commentators, right, and content creators, they are spreading right-wing rhetoric and conspiracy theories via pop culture coverage, and how much it has proliferated and how popular it is. And the reason that Asmongold doesn't want to say that he's a political commentator is because he doesn't want to turn people away who are like, I'm not into politics. I just want to watch Asmongold play video games and talk about video games. But when he talks about video games, he goes on a rampage, against DEI. Like, oh, there's a blue-haired character and his entire chat lights up. DEI woke, DEI woke. And the other reason that he doesn't want to say he's a political commentator is because the stakes are lower, right? If you're not saying that you're doing politics, if you're like, I'm not doing politics, then it's like you can get away with more, right? You don't have this responsibility. Not that I think he would feel a responsibility to be, diligent in his commentary. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, okay, for Hassan has a massive audience, right? He's the biggest leftist political streamer. One of the biggest leftist voices really in this country. And yet there are a lot of people who won't watch Hassan because they're like, he does politics. I don't want to watch politics on Twitch. I don't want to watch the news. Twitch is not a platform where I want to where I'm going to seek out a labeled political streamer, although he is apolitical now. Yes. And so saying that you are not a political streamer, and I say this because this is also an approach that I have taken, where in my mostly pop culture, focused content, and obviously I'm a leftist, and so you are, I am approaching this type of news and the things that I talk about with a critical lens from a perspective POV. But I I have chosen to do it through pop culture because I want it to also appeal to people who don't want to just hear about politics, right? They don't want me to just have, I don't know, a story about whatever, like, talking about the IRS or like the latest thing that is happening on CNN or et cetera, where they look at that and they're like, that's politics. That's politics. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. Right? Where it's like, I cover news, but because I'm not frequently just watching news outlets and commenting on it, and because I'm not necessarily covering everything that's happening in politics like other political streamers would, then I am there are people who will maybe consume my content because they're interested in pop culture, and then I hit them with the leftist shit. So anywho, and I said this before, but like, when you do pop culture, it is because it's considered lower stakes than doing political content, because I have, been told repeatedly that I'm stupid and dumb and I don't belong in the political commentary world at all. Like, go do your little pop culture stuff. That's the attitude, right? There's this belief that people who are covering pop culture, that there's less real world consequences to it, right? That people who are in opposition to my beliefs are like, she won't do any damage if she's just doing her little Hollywood stuff. And that's why Joe Rogan, we talk about him all the time, but the real world consequences, the political and cultural consequences of how popular Joe Rogan is and how much he has been able to just lie, to just spread straight up misinformation, and Spotify is doing nothing about it, has had a serious impact. But, people now they're taking it seriously. Now, there's a million stories about Joe Rogan and the manosphere and blah, 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 blah. But, he has really for the last couple of years done this heel turn. I mean, not even really heel turn. He's just gone harder into like anti-vax conspiracy bullshit. Saying really... falsehoods that are damaging to people's opinions regarding public health. Okay. For Miller Idris, misogyny often manifests in a preoccupation with women's visibility, and there are few women more visible in modern society than Twitch streamers. I use the definition of misogyny that Kate Mann uses, which is that it's not about hatred of women, it's a law enforcement mechanism of the patriarchy. You are trying to police the gender norms and expectations that the patriarchy wants to have in place, which includes women being subservient, demure, not public, not in leadership roles. When women violate those norms, they get met with misogyny. It is about control. It is about power. It's, putting women in their place type of thing. And for women and for Kwan, now it's not to say that there are not people who do not hate women, but when we're talking about like systemic misogyny, per this definition, we're talking about like the law enforcement mechanisms, like, misogyny existing so that we live in a society where women are inferior to men, just on all levels. Right? And if you are a woman who steps outside the bounds of what women are allowed to say and do, then you will be met with misogynistic attitudes. You will be attempted to be put in your place. It's a structural phenomenon, yes. And for Kwan, that's me. For Kwan, who regularly discusses these issues on her Twitch streams, it's crucial that society recognizes the forces behind what happened to Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru. This is not happening in a vacuum. This is not an individual one-off thing, she states, before turning to the online reactions in the immediate aftermath of the incident. This issue with female streamers is a result of misogyny that accounts like Keemstar and all these drama bait accounts play a part in cultivating. This seething resentment of women and anger over them. Drama Alert had tweeted 2 days earlier, Pokimane and her clones, Valkyrae and Cinna, who streamed with her during the marathon, finally called out for their behavior. And it's like, what is their behavior? What are you talking about? Right. Because he has, he's just one example, but he has cultivated a following where a large part of what he does is post shit that is so hostile to women and that like stirs up the worst of the worst online, where you go to the comments on any Keemstar post, okay, and take this one for example, and it's all like Kai Cenat better, these women, it's so much easier to just be a female streamer, you just have your tits out, or like, haha, glad they're finally being held accountable. Accountable for what? For being successful women? What do you mean accountable? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? For existing? So I want to be clear, okay? I am not alleging that tweet by Keemstar is what directly caused this guy to stalk them and threaten to harass them. But what I'm talking about is how it's all part of this culture that is so hostile to women, and the more successful women are, the more, the more visible they are, it's an increase in that hostility. And so this is not happening in a vacuum, right? Like this guy who went after these women, and when he was rejected by Emiru, threatened to kill them, you have to look at like, where is this coming from? Okay. What are the roots of this? This is not just happening out of nowhere. And for people who want to be like, it's just mental illness. It's just mental illness. Sure. Individuals like the guys who were stalking and harassing the female streamers who spoke with Alyssa for this piece, or that guy. But like, we cannot just dismiss this as, oh, these are individuals who are mentally ill. That is not the bigger problem here. It is still, okay, so these individuals have mental illness, still, where is this coming from? What is the culture? What is it in our society that creates the conditions for someone who say they are mentally ill or not to threaten or harm a woman? The reaction to Iron Mouse momentarily overtaking Kai for the most subscribed channel was disgusting. Yes, another example of how angry so many people were at Iron Mouse. And like Kai did come forward and say, hey, like no hate here. Iron Mouse is amazing. Congrats to her. But it doesn't matter, right? It's like these hordes of these hordes of really angry, usually young men, when we're talking about like these online spaces. It's not to say that they're all young, but they, something like that is also a result of this culture of misogyny where, oh my God, how dare Iron Mouse overtake Kai, a male streamer? And it's always the same. Like, what does she even do? She doesn't even do, she's not as good as Kai. She doesn't deserve this. Iron Mouse, right? Like they're saying that about Iron Mouse. Ides of May, thank you for the tier 1 average, Brody. Thank you for the 4 months. Like how they do with school shootings, never addressing the root cause, saying it's a mentally ill lone wolf. Send your thoughts and prayers and move on. Yes, absolutely. Right. Like, oh, this is just about mental illness. These are just individuals. These are individuals who are mentally ill. This is, there's nothing else going on here that we need to be addressing. Keem, who runs Drama Alert, declined to comment. Kwan continues, pointing to the current political landscape as a perpetuation of misogyny. This is a representative of a mentality at large. So many people who voted for Donald Trump, so many young men have this belief that they've been victimized by a woke society, by progress that has benefited women and trans people and all these other groups, which, yes, that is what's going on here, is this victim mentality that any type of social or political progress for historically marginalized people takes away from those who have not been historically marginalized, aka white men. And so they treat it like this zero-sum game where, first of all, they are, they falsely believe that now women, queer people, black people, and other people of color are suddenly the dominant forces here, that we have all the power, right? It's the same thing that Israel and Israel supporters will do, where they're like, we're we're the victims here. We're the underdogs, right? Like, look at all the support for Palestinians. Israelis and other Jewish people have never been, have never been more targeted since the Holocaust, where it's like, what are you talking about? The government of the United States of America has just disappeared a Palestinian activist because they didn't like what he was saying, because he was criticizing their sugar baby, Israel. And by, also by that criticism, criticizing the U.S. government. Right? It's this belief that even when you still possess the power, that any changes to the status quo, right? Any social movements, any progress, even if it's just a little bit, and that progress is always met with enormous backlash because of the people who are like, this is war, right? Now my life sucks. I can't pay my rent. I'm a victim, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, where they're responding to their real economic insecurities and conditions that affect all working class people, right? That's a real thing, but they're directing it at the wrong targets. The frustrating fight for justice. Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru have not yet brought their attacker to justice. May, Rhodes, Carr, and others have expressed their frustration at how difficult it is to be taken seriously by the police, the courts, and the general public, all a side effect of a culture steeped in misogyny. Rhodes claims that she had to threaten to go public with the details of her stalker and how it was affecting her life before the police would take it seriously. Yeah, the fact that she's having to tell the cops, I will go public. I am a Twitch streamer. I am an internet figure. I have a following, and I will put you on blast. Good for her. What about all the women who don't have followers or they can't do this? She wonders angrily. You just need to be persistent, Carr says, echoing Rhodes' sentiment. It's sad, but if you're just persistent, you can definitely get it done. But how do we stop harassment and stalking from happening in the first place? Some people believe that social media platforms like X, Meta, and YouTube have a moral obligation to remove inflammatory content that could be contributing to the constant online misogyny. For Twitch streamers, the ability to moderate their chat so only verified accounts can participate is helpful, but not a catch-all. Some users may not want to verify their account by giving Twitch their phone number, and bad actors have historically made multiple accounts to circumvent bans. Twitch tells Rolling Stone that it has several safety tools to better support creators on its platform, including dedicated staff content moderators and a range of tools to protect our community and guard against harm. There's also Shield mode, which allows streamers to activate all their safety settings at the touch of a button, and Auto Mod, which blocks potentially harmful messages in chat. More than 80% of streamers have enabled this tool, according to Twitch. It's also worth noting that we developed our off-service policy with these use cases in mind. The policy allows us to take enforcement action against Twitch accounts, even if they broke our policies outside of Twitch, the rep says. As far as stalkers creating multiple accounts, I love how fucking huge this photo is of me. As far as stalkers creating multiple accounts, Twitch continues to enforce our ban evasion policy and has built tools like suspicious user detection, which notifies a channel if a viewer may have been banned from their channel previously. Why is this so big? But platforms like Twitch can't stop the transition of harassment from online typed out threats to real world danger. That problem is systemic, rooted so deep into modern society. I know, a fucking glamour shot, that it seems impossible to pluck it out. Yeah, I mean, this is the truth, okay? Look, I do think that there are areas for Twitch to improve, right? Don't love that always it seems when Twitch is announcing update, it is something that is actually makes it worse for creators and viewers, like saying, oh yeah, now we'll only allow you 100 hours of VOD space and everything after that is just deleted. Content moderation helps, Milder Idris offers when asked about solutions. We also need more preventative interventions. We find the most effective thing to do with teenage boys is to point out the manipulation of online influencers who are selling them content that is driven by outrage. Right. The reality here, y'all, the reality here is that this shit is this shit is deep. Okay. It goes down to like the very roots of our society. And we're not going to change it by like changing the mindsets and the behavior of adults. Okay. This is something that really the best way to change, the best way to make societal changes and cultural changes has to start from the beginning. And so for young boys, you know, being raised not to find themselves drawn to someone like an Andrew Tate, you know, not raised in believing that they have some God-given right of superiority in this world, especially, you know, superiority over women. Like if you are straight, that you are superior to queer people. Like we have to cut and remove these harmful behaviors. And obviously, you know, when we talk about these systemic issues, right? Like this isn't just something where, okay, if we raise boys to, you know, not be little misogynistic assholes, then things will get better. But this also, you know, this is also something where our institutions, our systems of power that, oh my God, I am fucking sweating. I think the heat must be on or something. I was like, why am I having hot flashes? I'm only 32. Women are just, we're just too emotional. Okay. We're always in menopause. You can't, you know, they can't be any positions of power. My frustration with Twitch and others is that companies will spend billions to buy politicians to be able to strangle one more seagull with the plastic strap for their soda bottles, but they won't spend a fucking dime to get to do their job stopping stalkers. Yeah, right. So like our legal system, you know, our police departments, these are all institutions that we gotta burn that shit down, right? Because they are so thoroughly cooked that there's just these deep rooted problems down to the core of when laws were made, you know, when our modern legal system was designed, the way that police departments have been fashioned is that it is not to protect the people who need protecting. The law is so often not on the side of victims. Didn't Asman once compare Andrew Tate to MLK? I don't know, but that's funny as fuck and seems like something Asmongold would say. So we gotta start with teenage boys, blah blah blah. We gotta point out the manipulation of these online influencers who are selling them content that is driven by outrage, scapegoating, and the kind of manipulation about their very real grievances and problems, whether that's loneliness or something else. And that's the other thing too, right? We are not going to de-radicalize these young men and young women by offering up a candidate like Kamala Harris, okay? What we need to do is actually put forth real economic solutions, real policies that are designed to alleviate alleviate the stresses of the working class, speaking to material conditions. Right. And that was the problem with the Democratic Party, is they obviously didn't give a shit about that. And so having whatever Joe Rogan on the left, like, that's not going to fix the problem. Right? We need actual change at the political level. This article and interview are very cool and meaningful contributions. Congrats, even if the subject is really sad. Yeah, I think Alyssa did a great job with this. Once I'm done with this too, I will talk about the Japanese streamer. Though this kind of behavior points to a mental health crisis amongst young men, Kwan hopes, which, to be clear, young women also have a mental health crisis. Okay, there's just like a mental health crisis across the board. And all this talk of like, we need to talk about the male loneliness epidemic, right? Young men who are mentally ill. The difference is that young women who struggle with mental illness, they don't go shoot up schools. Okay. Female shooters, very rare. They don't go murder people. Okay. They don't go, they very rarely do the types of things that young men do, who are sufferers of, this mental health crisis, right? Who are dealing with loneliness that is directing them to these really insidiously misogynistic content creators who are telling them, you're not getting laid because women have too many rights. Okay? You're not getting laid because women are whatever, or like, blaming trans people for why you're not getting laid. Kwan hopes that people will ask different questions in the wake of what happened to Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru. We should not be asking, well, why didn't they have security? Or why didn't they do this? She says. The questions we should be asking are, why did that guy feel so bold in stalking these women? We should be looking at, what is it in this culture that directs a man like that to do what he did to these women? As Kwan said, what happened to Valkyrae, Cinna, and Emiru did not happen in a vacuum, and stalkers do not solely target Twitch streamers, though they are certainly more visible than most. In February 2022, young TikTok star Ava Marjorie's father shot and killed an armed teenager who broke into their home, who Marjorie claimed stalked her for months, both on the platform and off of it. In March 2023, podcaster Zohra Sadeghi and her husband Mohammed Nasseri were killed by a man whom she had an order of protection against when he began constantly messaging her and her friends after they met on Clubhouse, a podcast chat app. And there are countless stories of women who were not in the public eye, but were killed by their male stalkers, former coworkers, lovers, etc., even after going to their local authorities for help. Do you know that, like, okay, so when it comes to homicide in the workplace, one of the biggest areas of homicide in the workplace are male domestic abusers who show up to their girlfriends, partners, wives' place of work and murder them there. They all detailed their frustrations when trying to bring them to justice or sharing their experiences on social media platforms, how they were met with disdain and disbelief, how they had to remain persistent with authorities to be just to be heard, how concerned they were that other women facing this may not have the tools or support that they did. At the end of our conversation, Rhodes emphasizes how important mental health support is in potentially preventing this kind of behavior and how dedicated she is to securing a future for her daughter where harassment like this doesn't happen. I want a better world for her, Rhodes says with tears in her eyes. I don't want her to feel unsafe. I already know that anybody who reads this piece who's already hostile to this, to this, what we're saying here is going to hate the fact that what I said here, where I'm like, we have to move past this just being talked about as an individual mental health crisis. And we have to look at like, what is it in our culture that creates the permissions, the conditions, what leads these men, mentally ill or not, young or old, to violate women, to abuse women. Right. Like why has this been so normalized?